The bridge of the UNS Titan hummed with the sound of 1,000 systems working in perfect harmony. Commander Jacob Hayes stood at the center of it all, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the stars drift past the massive view screen. He was 42 years old and looked every day of it. Gray streaked through his dark hair and lines creased his face from years of service. But his eyes were sharp and alert, missing nothing that happened on his bridge. The Titan was enormous. 4 kilometers of steel and weapons and fury. It was humanity's first true battleship, built in secret over 15 years in the orbital shipyards above Mars. 8,000 crew members lived and worked inside its hull. Most of them had never seen real combat. They had trained endlessly, but war was still just a concept to them. Jacob hoped it would stay that way. Lieutenant Commander Kate Morgan appeared at his side. She was 36 with sharp features and sharper instincts. Her uniform was perfectly pressed as always. She had served under Jacob for 6 years and he trusted her judgment completely. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission," she said. "It's from Earth Command." "Admiral Grant himself," Jacob nodded. "Put it through." The view screen shifted from stars to the weathered face of Admiral Peter Grant. The old man looked tired. More than tired. He looked worried, and that made Jacob's stomach tighten. Grant never worried without good reason. "Commander Hayes," Grant said without preamble. "We have a situation. A diplomatic vessel just arrived from the Galactic Council. They're requesting an emergency meeting with our leadership." Jacob raised an eyebrow. The Galactic Council had quarantined Earth 200 years ago after first contact. They had declared humanity too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous to join their civilized community. Since then, contact had been minimal and always cold. "What do they want?" Jacob asked. "Help," Grant said simply. "They're losing a war." For a moment, Jacob thought he had misheard. The Galactic Council controlled 17 star systems and had maintained peace for 3,000 years. They had technology that made Earth's best ships look like toys. The idea that they were losing a war seemed impossible. "The Kresh Dominion has broken the treaties," Grant continued. "They're an insectoid species from the Galactic Rim. Apparently, they don't care about the Council's rules of engagement. They've already destroyed 12 worlds. The Council's fleets are being slaughtered." Kate stepped closer to the screen. "Why come to us? They've made it clear we're not welcome in their community." Grant's expression was grim. "Because their civilized warfare doesn't work against an enemy that won't play by the rules. They need someone who understands real combat. They need us." Jacob was quiet for a long moment. He thought about all the times Earth had reached out to the Council and been rejected. All the times humanity had been called barbaric and dangerous. Now they came begging for the very thing they had condemned. "What are our orders, sir?" he asked finally. "The Council is making their last stand at the threshold system. 6 billion civilians on the primary world. If it falls, the Kresh will have a clear path to the core systems. I'm sending the Titan. You'll coordinate with the Council fleet and do whatever is necessary to stop the invasion." Jacob felt the weight of command settle heavier on his shoulders. "Understood, Admiral. We'll make preparations to depart immediately." "Hayes," Grant said, his voice softening slightly. "This is our chance to prove ourselves, to show them we're not monsters. But more importantly, this is our chance to save billions of lives. Don't let politics get in the way of that." "No, sir. We won't." The transmission ended and the stars returned to the view screen. Kate was looking at him with that expression she got when she disagreed with something, but was too professional to say it out loud. "Speak your mind." "Commander," Jacob said. "They shunned us for 2 centuries, Kate said carefully. "They called us warmongers and savages. They refused to trade with us, share technology with us, even talk to us unless absolutely necessary. And now that they're in trouble, suddenly we're good enough to die for them?" Jacob understood her anger. He felt it too, but he also understood something else. "You're right," he said. "They treated us terribly. But right now there are 6 billion people who had nothing to do with that decision. People who are about to die if we don't help. Can you live with that?" Kate was silent for a moment. Then she shook her head. "No, sir. I can't. Neither can I. So we go and we fight and we show them what humanity is really capable of." He turned to face the bridge crew. Every station was occupied by men and women who had trained their entire careers for combat that never came. Now it was finally here. "All hands, this is Commander Hayes," he said, his voice carrying through every deck and compartment of the massive ship. "We've just received orders to deploy to the threshold system. The Galactic Council is engaged with a hostile force and they've requested our assistance. I won't lie to you. This is going to be real combat. Not a drill. Not a simulation. The enemy we're facing has already destroyed 12 worlds and killed billions. They're ruthless and they're winning. He paused, letting that sink in. For 200 years, the galaxy has seen us as dangerous, as violent, as something to be feared and avoided. Today we're going to show them they were right, but we're also going to show them why that's exactly what they need. We're going to show them that when humanity goes to war, we don't do it halfway. We don't fight for glory or territory. We fight to protect those who can't protect themselves, even if they've never been our friends. He looked around the bridge at the faces of his crew. He saw fear there, but also determination. Set course for the threshold system. Maximum velocity. Battle stations in effect. All departments prepare for combat operations. This is what we trained for. This is what the Titan was built for. Let's show the galaxy what Earth's battleship can do. The crew responded instantly. Stations lit up across the bridge as systems came online. Captain Lynn Carter took her position at the Combat Information Center, her fingers already flying across tactical displays. Lieutenant Greg Murphy laid in the navigation course, his hands steady on the controls. Weapons Officer Daniel Price began the lengthy process of bringing the Titan's arsenal to full readiness. Kate stood beside Jacob, her earlier doubts set aside. How long to the threshold system? At maximum quantum drive, 6 days, Jacob said. Assuming the Council can hold out that long. And if they can't? Jacob's expression hardened. Then we arrive to find a graveyard and we make sure the Kresh pay for every life they've taken. The Titan's massive quantum drives engaged, folding space in ways that still made scientists uncomfortable. Reality bent around the battleship as it accelerated beyond light speed. On the bridge, Jacob watched the stars blur into streaks of light. 6 days until they reached the battlefield. 6 days until humanity entered its first interstellar war. 6 days until the galaxy learned what it truly meant to face Earth's children in combat. He hoped they were ready. He hoped his crew was ready. Most of all, he hoped that when the fighting was over, there would still be something worth saving. The journey had begun. The UNS Titan dropped out of quantum space at the edge of the threshold system, and Jacob Hayes immediately knew they were too late to prevent a massacre. The view screen showed a vision of destruction that made even his experienced crew fall silent. 17 Council defense platforms burned in the void, their elegant crystalline structures shattered into millions of glittering pieces. Debris fields stretched across space as far as their sensors could detect. Ships, stations, cargo haulers, everything was either destroyed or dying. Get me a tactical overview, Jacob ordered, his voice cutting through the shocked silence on the bridge. Captain Lynn Carter worked her controls with practiced efficiency. She was 29 and the best tactical officer Jacob had ever served with. Her screens lit up with data that made the situation crystal clear. 3,000 Kresh ships filled the system. They moved in swarms like insects, overwhelming everything they encountered through sheer numbers. The remaining Council forces had retreated to form a defensive sphere around the primary world. Lynn counted 187 ships. They were outnumbered more than 15 to 1. The Council fleet is barely holding, Lynn reported. They're clustered around Threshold Prime. Population 6 billion. The Kresh are preparing for a final assault. Jacob studied the tactical display. The Kresh vessels were unlike anything in Earth's databases. They were organic grown rather than built. Their hulls looked like chitin and their weapons glowed with bioluminescent energy. They moved in coordinated swarms, each group acting as a single entity. It was both beautiful and terrifying. What are the Council ships doing? Kate Morgan asked from beside him. Lynn zoomed in on the defensive formation. They're following standard engagement protocols, broadcasting their attack vectors before firing, waiting for enemies to power weapons before responding, limiting collateral damage. They're fighting by their treaty rules. And the Kresh? Jacob asked, though he already knew the answer. The Kresh aren't following any rules at all. They swarm targets. They attack civilian vessels. They destroy everything they encounter. The Council ships don't know how to respond. Jacob felt a cold anger settle in his chest. The Galactic Council had spent 3,000 years playing at war. They had turned combat into a gentleman's game with rules and protocols and agreed upon limitations. Now they were dying because they couldn't adapt to an enemy that wanted them dead. Commander, we're being hailed, the communications officer announced. It's Ambassador Velthar from the Council flagship. Put him through. The view screen shifted to show a being of crystalline structure that seemed to shift and flow like liquid glass. Velthar's voice came through as a melodic chime that the translator converted to English. Human vessel, you have arrived. We are grateful. Please take position in the defensive formation. We will transmit proper engagement protocols and acceptable weapon yields. You must understand that even in this crisis, we must maintain civilized warfare standards. Jacob stared at the ambassador for a long moment. Around them, the Kresh were burning worlds and killing billions, and the Council still wanted to follow protocols. Ambassador, with respect, your protocols are why you're losing this war. Jacob said carefully. The Kresh don't care about your rules. They're going to keep killing until there's nothing left. Velthar's crystalline form shifted in what might have been discomfort. We cannot abandon 3,000 years of civilized conduct. There must be limits to warfare or we are no better than animals. Right now, being animals is what's going to keep your people alive, Jacob replied. We're not here to follow your rules. We're here to win. Before Velthar could respond, Lin's voice cut across the bridge with sharp urgency. Commander, the Kresh have detected us. They're detaching a swarm to investigate. 300 ships inbound. Jacob turned back to his crew. This was it. The moment that would define everything that came after. He could play by the Council's rules and watch his ship die. Or he could do what humanity did best. All hands, battle stations. Weapons Officer Price, I want full combat readiness. Every system online. No restrictions. Daniel Price was 40 years old and had fought in the Mars Rebellion. He knew how to kill and he was very good at it. His fingers moved across the weapons console, bringing system after system to life. Railguns online. Missile pods loaded. Point defense grid active. Nuclear arsenal ready. We are weapons-free, Commander. Kate stepped closer to Jacob. If we use our full arsenal, the Council is going to see exactly how we fight. There's no going back from that. Good, Jacob said. Let them see. Let them all see what happens when you push humanity into a corner. The 300 Kresh ships closed the distance rapidly. They moved in a coordinated swarm, organic vessels pulsing with bioenergy. They had destroyed Council ships by the dozens. They expected another easy kill. They had no idea what was coming. Range in 30 seconds, Lin reported, her voice steady despite the impossible odds. Jacob watched the countdown timer. 20 seconds, 15, 10. The Kresh ships spread out to surround the Titan, a classic swarm tactic. They would attack from all sides simultaneously and overwhelm the target. Fire, Jacob said quietly. The UNS Titan unleashed hell. Railguns mounted along the ship's spine fired depleted uranium slugs at 17% the speed of light. Each round carried kinetic energy equivalent to multiple nuclear weapons. The first volley hit 6 Kresh ships simultaneously. They didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the molecular level by the sheer force of impact. The Kresh swarm tried to adapt, breaking formation and attempting to scatter. The Titan's missile pods opened and released 200 smart munitions. Each missile had its own guidance system and hunted independently. They swarmed through space like angry hornets, tracking Kresh vessels and detonating with nuclear fury. The remaining Kresh ships attempted to return fire. Bioplasma weapons charged and launched. The Titan's point defense system responded instantly. Thousands of laser emplacements tracked incoming fire and eliminated each threat before it could reach the hull. It was like watching rain evaporate before touching the ground. Daniel Price worked his controls with cold efficiency. Targets designated, firing main batteries. More railgun rounds tore through space. More Kresh ships disintegrated. The organic vessels tried to swarm the Titan from multiple vectors, but Lieutenant Greg Murphy proved why he was the best pilot in Earth's Navy. He maneuvered the massive battleship like a fighter craft, keeping optimal firing angles while never presenting an easy target. 4 minutes after the engagement began, silence fell across the battlefield. Jacob looked at the tactical display. 297 Kresh vessels were now debris clouds. 3 had managed to escape, fleeing back toward the main swarm. The UNS Titan floated undamaged in the void, surrounded by the wreckage of its enemies. Every sensor in the system was focused on them now. The Kresh, the Council fleet, civilian stations. Everyone had watched the engagement. Everyone had seen what the human battleship could do. Lin broke the silence. Commander, we're receiving thousands of transmissions. The Council fleet is demanding to know what weapons we used. The Kresh main swarm is repositioning. They're recognizing us as a threat. Jacob opened a channel to the Council flagship. Ambassador Velthar appeared on screen again. The crystalline being was shimmering rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "What have you done?" Velthar asked, his melodic voice sharp with something that might have been fear. "Those weapons, that destruction, it violates every principle of civilized warfare. You killed 300 ships in minutes." Jacob's expression was hard. "I did what was necessary to protect 6 billion lives. Your principles are beautiful, Ambassador, but they don't stop enemies who want you dead. Now you have a choice. You can court-martial me for not following your rules, or you can let me save your people." Velthar was silent for a long moment. Finally, the ambassador spoke. "What do you propose?" "I propose we stop defending and start attacking. The Kresh have a main fleet of over 2,000 ships. They have command vessels coordinating their swarms. If we take out those command ships, the entire fleet will fall apart. But it requires offensive action. No protocols, no rules, just war." "The Council will never approve such tactics," Velthar said. Jacob smiled without humor. "Then I guess it's good I don't need their approval. I need coordinates for your defensive perimeter. We're coming in, and then we're going hunting." He closed the channel before Velthar could protest. Kate was looking at him with a mixture of concern and admiration. "We just showed them what humanity can do," she said quietly. "Some of them are going to see us as saviors. Others are going to see us as the next threat." "I know," Jacob replied. "But right now, staying alive is more important than being liked." The Titan moved toward the Council defensive sphere. Behind them floated the debris of 300 enemy ships. Ahead of them waited the main Kresh swarm, now fully aware that something dangerous had entered their hunting ground. The real battle was about to begin. The Galactic Council held an emergency session while the UNS Titan prepared for its next assault. Representatives from 15 species argued frantically across quantum communication channels. They were not discussing the Kresh threat. They were discussing humanity. Ambassador Velthar reported what he had witnessed, and the Council members reacted with a mixture of awe and terror. A single human warship had destroyed 300 enemy vessels in 4 minutes without taking damage. It was a level of military effectiveness they had not seen in their entire recorded history. Some wanted to immediately restrict human weapon systems. Others wanted to learn from Earth's tactics. A few simply wanted humanity quarantined again as soon as the crisis ended. The debate raged while billions of lives hung in the balance. Jacob Hayes ignored the political chaos. He had a mission and he intended to complete it. The Titan took position at the edge of the Council defensive sphere, and Jacob studied the tactical situation. The Kresh main swarm numbered over 2,000 ships now. They were massing for a final assault on Threshold Prime. Standard defensive tactics would fail. The sheer numbers would eventually overwhelm any static defense. Dr. Amy Chen approached the command station. She was the Titan's science officer, 34 years old with a mind that processed information faster than most computers. She had been analyzing every scrap of data from the first engagement. "Commander, I think I've found something important," Amy said, pulling up holographic displays that showed the Kresh fleet movements. "Watch how they coordinate. It's not random. There are patterns." Jacob studied the display carefully. Amy highlighted 17 larger vessels scattered throughout the swarm. Each one sat at the center of a cluster of smaller ships. "Command vessels," Jacob said immediately. "Exactly," Amy confirmed. "The Kresh operate as a hive intelligence. These larger ships are the nodes that coordinate entire sections of their fleet. If we eliminate them, the swarm will lose cohesion. The individual ships will still be dangerous, but they won't operate as a unified force." Kate Morgan leaned over to examine the data. "How certain are you?" 93%, Amy replied. "I've tracked communication patterns, movement coordination, and tactical responses. Everything points to a distributed network with these 17 ships as critical nodes." Jacob felt a plan forming in his mind. It was risky, and would require the kind of aggressive tactics that made the Council uncomfortable. But it was their best chance. "We go after the command ships," he decided, one at a time. "Hit-and-run tactics. We strike fast, eliminate the target, and jump out before the swarm can respond." "The Council fleet won't support that kind of offensive action," Kate warned. "They're still following their engagement protocols." "Then we do it alone," Jacob said. He opened a channel to the Council flagship. "Ambassador Velthar, we've identified critical targets in the Kresh fleet. I'm requesting permission to conduct surgical strikes. Velthar's crystalline form appeared on screen. Behind him, Jacob could see other council officers arguing. Commander Hayes, I must inform you that several council members have filed formal protests against your combat methods. Admiral Torvan of the Scythian fleet has proposed that you maintain a strictly defensive position until proper protocols can be established. Jacob's jaw tightened. Ambassador, while you're debating protocols, the Kresh are preparing to kill 6 billion people. I don't have time for committee meetings. I'm going after their command structure. You can approve it or not, but either way, we're moving in 10 minutes. He closed the channel before Velthar could respond. Kate was looking at him with that expression again. You just told the entire Galactic Council to go to hell, she observed. I told them we have a job to do, Jacob corrected. Lieutenant Murphy, plot attack vectors for the nearest command vessel. Weapons Officer Price, I want firing solutions ready the moment we drop out of quantum drive. Dr. Chen, keep tracking those command ships. If they move, I need to know immediately. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Greg Murphy plotted a course that would bring them in at maximum velocity. Daniel Price prepared weapons packages optimized for single-target elimination. Amy Chen monitored Kresh communications for any sign they had detected Earth's plan. Ready on your order, Commander, Greg reported. Jacob took a deep breath. Execute. The Titan's quantum drives engaged and space folded around the massive battleship. They emerged 3,000 kilometers from the first command vessel, a ship twice the size of standard Kresh craft covered in pulsing bioluminescent nodes. The moment they appeared, Daniel Price fired. Railgun rounds crossed the distance in seconds. The command ship's organic armor cracked under the kinetic impact. Nuclear-tipped missiles followed, detonating in a series of precise strikes that tore through the vessel's core. The entire engagement lasted 18 seconds. The command ship broke apart and the Titan jumped back to quantum space before the surrounding swarm could even respond. They repeated the process 6 times over the next 3 hours. Each strike was perfectly executed. Each command vessel was eliminated before the Kresh could mount an effective defense. Jacob watched the tactical display as sections of the enemy fleet began to show signs of confusion. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination now made mistakes, collided with each other, broke formation. By the time they eliminated the 7th command ship, Admiral Torvan of the Council fleet was requesting a direct communication. Jacob accepted and found himself looking at a reptilian being with scales that shifted between green and blue. Torvan's eyes were sharp and calculating. Commander Hayes, I have been watching your tactics, Torvan said in a voice like gravel sliding over stone. You are systematically dismantling their command structure. It is brutal and efficient and completely contrary to 3,000 years of Council doctrine. With respect, Admiral, your doctrine is getting your people killed, Jacob replied. Torvan's scales shifted to a darker shade. You are correct. I have spent my entire career following rules that I now see are inadequate for true war. The Council ordered me to maintain defensive positions only, but watching you fight, I realize that defense alone will not save us. So I'm making a decision that will likely end my career. The reptilian admiral straightened in his command chair. The Scythian fleet is breaking formation. We are moving to support your offensive operations. If the Council wishes to court-martial me afterward, so be it. But right now my duty is to protect my people, and you have shown me how. Jacob felt a surge of respect for the alien officer. Welcome to the fight, Admiral. Dr. Chen is transmitting coordinates for the remaining command vessels. If we work together, we can break their entire fleet. Over the next 2 hours, the combined human and Scythian forces conducted a devastating campaign. The Titan would strike first, drawing the attention of the Kresh swarm. Then Torvan's ships would hit from a different angle, catching the enemy off balance. Slowly, other Council ships began to join the offensive. Some captains defied their orders. Others asked permission and moved anyway when it was denied. The defensive sphere broke apart as individual commanders made the choice to trust Earth's tactics over Council protocols. Admiral Torvan proved to be an exceptional commander. His ships lacked the Titan's overwhelming firepower, but they were fast and coordinated. The Scythian crews adapted quickly to aggressive tactics. By the time they eliminated the 12th command vessel, Torvan's forces were operating with the efficiency of veterans. Jacob found himself working closely with the alien admiral, coordinating strikes and sharing tactical data in real time. Kate noticed the partnership developing. He's learning fast, she observed as they watched Torvan's fleet execute a perfect flanking maneuver. He was always a good commander, Jacob replied. He just needed permission to actually fight. They eliminated the 15th command vessel and the Kresh fleet was visibly fragmenting. Entire sections were breaking away from the main swarm, either fleeing or fighting amongst themselves without coordination. The tide of battle had shifted, but Amy Chen detected something that made her blood run cold. "Commander, the Kresh are not retreating randomly. Look at the vectors. They're all falling back to a single location." Jacob studied her display. She was right. The surviving Kresh ships were converging on a massive structure at the edge of the system. Long-range scans showed it was a biostation, something organic and enormous, 40 kilometers across with energy readings that made no sense. "What is that thing?" Kate asked. Amy ran analysis after analysis. "It's a weapon, a planetary bombardment system. It's charging up. Energy levels are increasing exponentially. Based on the readings, when it fires, it could crack Threshold Prime's crust. 6 billion people would die instantly." Jacob felt ice in his veins. "Time until it can fire?" 52 minutes, Amy replied. Jacob opened channels to both the Council flagship and Admiral Torvan. "All commands, the Kresh have a superweapon. It's targeting the planet. We need to destroy it before it fires." Veltar's voice came back immediately. "Commander, that station is heavily defended. Preliminary scans show thousands of weapon emplacements and over 100,000 Kresh warriors. A direct assault would be suicide. We must evacuate the planet and fall back to a secondary defensive line. There isn't time to evacuate 6 Bill." The Kresh biostation grew larger on the view screen with every passing second. Jacob Hayes watched it approach and felt his stomach tighten. The structure was a nightmare given form. 40 kilometers of pulsing organic matter covered in thousands of weapon emplacements. Bioluminescent veins ran across its surface like diseased blood vessels. Sensors detected over 100,000 Kresh warriors inside the station, along with the massive energy buildup at its core. The weapon was charging, and when it fired, Threshold Prime would die. Kate Morgan stood at the tactical station running calculations that all came back with the same answer. The odds of survival were almost zero. She looked at Jacob and saw the determination in his eyes. He had made his decision, and nothing would change it. Sometimes command meant accepting that you might not come back. Sometimes protecting others required sacrifice. "Time to weapons range?" Jacob asked. 3 minutes, Lieutenant Greg Murphy replied from the helm. His hands were steady on the controls, despite the fear Jacob knew he must be feeling. "The station is launching defensive swarms. Looks like living missiles, thousands of them." Daniel Price was already tracking the incoming threats on his weapons console. "Point defense systems online, but Commander, the sheer volume is going to overwhelm our defensive grid. We're going to take hits." "I know," Jacob said. "Do your best. All power to forward shields. If we're going to punch through, we need to survive long enough to reach firing range." The Titan accelerated to maximum velocity. Behind them, Admiral Torvan's fleet matched their speed. The reptilian commander had committed 23 ships to the assault. It was a fraction of the Council forces, but it was something. Jacob opened a channel to the Scythian admiral. "Torvan, when we reach the station, my ship will draw their fire. Use that opening to hit their secondary weapon systems. If we can reduce their defensive capability, we might have a chance." The admiral's scales shifted to show respect. "Understood, Commander. It has been an honor fighting beside you. If we do not survive this, know that the galaxy will remember what humanity did here. Let's make sure we survive to tell the story ourselves," Jacob replied. The living missiles reached weapon range and Kate gave the order to engage. The Titan's point defense grid lit up space with thousands of laser strikes per second. Living. Creatures died by the hundreds, their organic bodies torn apart by precision fire, but there were too many. For every missile destroyed, 3 more got through. They slammed into the Titan's forward shields with terrible force. The ship shuddered under the impacts. "Shields at 70%, Kate reported. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 11. Ceiling-affected compartments, casualty reports coming in." Jacob gripped his command chair as the ship took another wave of hits. "How many?" 34 dead, 62 wounded, Kate said quietly. 34 people dead, and they had not even reached the station yet. Jacob felt the weight of every life on his shoulders, but he could not stop now. Stopping meant 6 billion more deaths. He had to keep moving forward. The Titan pushed through the defensive swarms and finally entered effective weapons range. The biostation opened fire with everything it had. Bioplasma bolts the size of buildings streaked through space. Organic projectiles that tracked on heat signatures converged on the battleship from all directions. The ship's shields flared brilliant white as they absorbed impact after impact. "Shields failing," Kate warned. "We're taking direct hits to the hull." Jacob felt the deck shift under his feet as explosions rippled through the ship. Damage alarms screamed from every station. But they were close now. Close enough. Weapons. "Officer Price, I need a firing solution on that weapon chamber. One shot. Make it count." Daniel Price's fingers flew across his console. "The weapon is buried deep in the station's core. Heavy organic armor and energy barriers protecting it. Conventional assault would take hours we don't have." Dr. Amy. Chen appeared beside Daniel, her mind racing through possibilities. What if we concentrate everything on a single point, time it perfectly with their shield recharge cycle, hit them with everything simultaneously? Daniel studied her calculations and a grim smile crossed his face. It could work, but we would need to fire every weapon system at exactly the same moment. Railguns, missiles, energy weapons, everything. The timing window is 7/10 of a second. If we miss it, we get one chance and waste our entire arsenal. "Can you do it?" Jacob asked. Daniel met his commander's eyes. "Yes, sir. I can do it." "Then do it." The Titan moved into position while taking devastating fire from all sides. More hull breaches, more casualties. Engineer Chief Paul Bennett's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Commander, the quantum drives are operating at 112% capacity. We're pushing systems beyond their designed limits. I don't know how much longer we can maintain this." "Just keep us flying, Chief," Jacob replied. "A few more minutes is all we need." Amy Chen worked frantically at her console, calculating the exact moment when the biostation's shields would cycle for recharge. It was a tiny window, a fraction of a second, when the station would be vulnerable. She fed the data to Daniel's weapon systems and prayed her math was correct. 30 seconds to firing window, Daniel announced. All weapons charged and ready. Targeting solution locked. Jacob watched the countdown timer. 20 seconds. 15. The Titan shuddered under another massive impact. Sparks flew from damaged systems. The lights flickered. "Shields are down," Kate reported. "We're taking direct fire to the hull. 10 seconds. Jacob could hear the groaning of stressed metal as the ship's structure absorbed punishment it was never designed to withstand. 5 seconds. "Fire everything," Jacob ordered. The UNS Titan unleashed its full arsenal in a single devastating moment. Railgun batteries fired armor-piercing rounds at 17% light speed. Every missile pod opened simultaneously, releasing nuclear-pumped warheads. Energy weapons that had been charging for the entire approach discharged in a coherent beam. Everything humanity had built into their battleship was aimed at a single point on the biostation's surface. The concentrated firepower struck just as the station's shields cycled down for recharge. The railgun rounds hit first, punching through layers of organic armor like paper. Nuclear warheads detonated microseconds later, channeling gamma radiation deep into the wound. The energy beam followed, burning through everything in its path. The combined assault released more energy than a solar flare compressed into a space the size of a city block. The biostation's weapon chamber erupted. The structure had been charging its planetary bombardment weapon for nearly an hour. All that energy was suddenly destabilized. Secondary explosions rippled through the station as biological systems failed catastrophically. The weapon that would have destroyed a world instead tore apart from within. The biostation began to break apart. Massive pieces of organic hull spun away into space. The central weapon detonated in a blast that sent shockwaves racing outward. The Titan was too close. Far too close. "Brace for impact," Jacob shouted. The shockwave hit like a physical wall. The battleship tumbled end over end, all control lost. Systems failed across every deck. The main power grid went offline and emergency lighting cast everything in red. Jacob was thrown from his command chair. He felt his head hit something hard and warm blood streamed down his face. Around him, His crew fought to survive. Kate pulled herself up from where she had been thrown against a console. Blood ran from a cut above her eye, but she was alive. All stations damage report. The responses came back slowly. Life support was functioning. The hull was breached in 17 sections but holding. The quantum drives were offline. Main power was gone. Greg Murphy had a broken arm, but he was still at his station. Using only maneuvering thrusters, he fought to stabilize the ship's tumble. Slowly, painfully, he regained attitude control. "Commander," Kate called out. She crawled across the damaged bridge to where Jacob lay against a bulkhead. "Commander Hayes." Jacob opened his eyes. Everything hurt, but he was alive. "Status? The station is destroyed. The weapon is gone. Threshold Prime is safe." Jacob pulled himself to his feet with Kate's help. He looked around the ruined bridge. Sparks fell from damaged systems. Several crew members were injured. But they were still here, still fighting. Paul Bennett's voice crackled over the intercom. "Bridge, this is engineering. Give me 60 seconds and I can get main power back online." "You've got 45, Jacob replied. True to his word, Paul Bennett and his team restored primary systems in 42 seconds. The lights came back on. The bridge displays flickered to life. Jacob pulled himself back into his command chair and assessed the situation. "Casualties?" he asked quietly. Kate checked her console. 217 dead, 306 wounded. Entire sections of the ship are exposed to vacuum. We'll need months of repairs. 217 people. 217 crew members who had trusted him. Who had followed him into hell. Jacob felt the weight of every single life. But then he looked at the tactical display. The biostation was debris. The remaining Kresh forces, seeing their superweapon destroyed and their command structure shattered, were breaking apart. Individual ships were fleeing in all directions. The swarm was no more. Threshold Prime remained intact. 6 billion people were AL. 3 weeks after the Battle of Threshold System, the UNS Titan limped into Earth orbit. The great battleship bore the scars of war across every surface. Hull plates were missing. Entire sections remained sealed off and exposed to vacuum. Temporary patches covered breaches that would take months to properly repair. But the ship flew, and that was what mattered. Jacob Hayes stood on the bridge and watched his homeworld grow larger on the view screen. They had left as an untested crew heading into the unknown. They returned as veterans who had saved 6 billion lives. The crew was exhausted. Every person aboard had worked around the clock during the journey home, just to keep critical systems operational. Engineer Chief Paul Bennett and his teams had performed miracles. Dr. Amy Chen had converted cargo bays into makeshift medical facilities to treat the wounded. Lieutenant Kate Morgan had coordinated repairs while managing the grief of losing 217 crew members. They were all changed by what they had experienced. War did that to people. Earth Command sent a priority transmission as they entered orbit. Admiral Peter Grant appeared on screen, and Jacob saw pride mixed with sorrow in the old man's eyes. Grant had sent them into battle. He had known the risks. Now he had to face the cost. "Commander Hayes, welcome home," Grant said. "Your after-action reports have been reviewed. What you and your crew accomplished is nothing short of extraordinary. The Galactic Council has requested to meet with Earth leadership. They're lifting the quarantine. They want us to join them." Jacob nodded slowly. "What are the terms?" "They want our help rebuilding their defense forces. They want to learn from us, and they want humanity to take a seat on the Council itself. Full membership with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. It was everything Earth had wanted for 2 centuries. Recognition, acceptance, a place among the stars." But Jacob found himself wondering what price that acceptance would carry. "There's something else," Grant continued. "A delegation is already en route to Earth. Ambassador Velthar is bringing representatives from 12 species. They'll arrive within the week." The transmission ended, and Jacob turned to his crew. They deserved rest. They deserved to go home to their families and try to recover from what they had been through. But he knew their work was far from over. The galaxy had changed, and humanity was at the center of that change. The Galactic Council delegation arrived 6 days later. Their ships were elegant and beautiful, designed by civilizations that had forgotten what real war looked like. They landed at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and the representatives emerged to face a world they had spent 2 centuries avoiding. Ambassador Velthar led the delegation. The crystalline being's form shifted nervously as human media recorded everything. The formal meetings took place in the Great Assembly Hall. Earth's leaders sat on one side. The council delegation sat on the other. Jacob was there in his uniform along with Kate and several other senior officers from the Titan. Admiral Grant represented Earth's military interests. Velthar spoke first. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I come to offer gratitude and apology. For 200 years we kept humanity isolated because we feared your nature. We saw your capacity for violence and aggression, and we deemed you too dangerous for civilized society. We were wrong. When we faced extinction, it was humanity that saved us. Your Commander Hayes and the crew of the Titan showed us that the qualities we feared were the very qualities needed for survival. The ambassador paused and his crystalline form glowed brighter. The quarantine is lifted. Earth is invited to join the Galactic Council with full membership and voting rights. We also request your assistance in rebuilding our defense forces. The old ways have failed. We need to learn from humanity how to truly protect ourselves. Admiral Torvan stepped forward next. The Scythian commander's scales showed deep respect as he addressed the assembly. I have been a military officer for 43 years. I commanded fleets in 7 different treaty conflicts, but I never truly understood war until I fought beside Commander Hayes. He taught me that sometimes protecting innocent lives requires more than following protocols. It requires courage and sacrifice and the willingness to risk everything. Torvan turned to face Jacob directly. I have been promoted to Supreme Council Commander. My first act in that position is to request that human officers serve as advisors to our military forces. We need your knowledge. We need your perspective. 17 star systems are requesting human military consultants. We are offering Lieutenant Commander Morgan a position training council officers in tactical operations. Dr. Chen is being asked to head a new interspecies tactical institute. We are asking you to help us become stronger. Jacob listened to the offers and felt the weight of what they meant. Earth had wanted recognition for so long, but this was more than recognition. This was responsibility. The galaxy was asking humanity to share the burden of keeping civilization safe. But not everyone was pleased with these developments. Ambassador Drexel of the Conformity Collective stood, and his mechanical body clicked as he moved. I must register a formal objection. While humanity's actions at Threshold were effective, we must consider the implications. Commander Hayes used weapons that violated every treaty we have maintained for 3,000 years. He ignored our protocols. He fought with a brutality that we abandoned millennia ago. Yes, he saved lives, but at what cost to our principles? Drexel's optical sensors focused on Jacob. I propose that humanity's military expansion be limited, that their technology be restricted, that they be monitored to ensure they do not become the next threat we must face. They saved us from the Kresh, but who will save us from them? The assembly fell silent. It was the question many had been afraid to ask. Humanity had proven they could fight and win, but could they be trusted with that power? Jacob stood slowly. He had not prepared a speech. He had not expected to address the council, but someone needed to answer Drexel's concerns. Ambassador, you're right to be cautious, Jacob began. Humanity is dangerous. We are aggressive and violent, and we fight wars with an intensity that makes civilized species uncomfortable. But here's what you need to understand. We didn't choose to be this way. Earth is a harsh world. For millions of years, everything on our planet competed for survival. We evolved in an environment where the weak died and the strong adapted. We learned to fight because fighting was the only way to survive. He walked to the center of the assembly. You see our capacity for violence and it frightens you. But you don't see where that capacity comes from. It comes from the same place as our capacity for sacrifice, for loyalty, for protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We fight hard because we care deeply. When we commit to something, we commit completely. That's what saved Threshold Prime, not our weapons, not our tactics. Our willingness to risk everything to protect people we had never met. Jacob's voice grew stronger. You can fear us if you want. You can try to limit us. But understand this. We will not apologize for being effective at survival. We will not weaken ourselves to make you feel comfortable. What we will do is use our strength to protect those who need protection. We'll teach anyone who wants to learn. We'll fight alongside anyone who needs help. But we won't be anything other than what we are. He looked around at the assembled representatives. 217 of my crew died at Threshold System. They died protecting your people. They died following orders I gave them. I will not dishonor their sacrifice by pretending humanity should be something we're not. You want us to join your council? Then accept us as we are, all of us. The violence and the compassion, the aggression and the loyalty. You don't get one without the other. The assembly was silent for a long moment. Then Admiral Torvon began a slow rhythmic clicking that Jacob realized was Scythian applause. Other delegates joined in their own ways. Even Velthar's crystalline form glowed in what might have been approval. The vote was called. Earth's full membership in the Galactic Council was confirmed by a margin of 9-3. No restrictions. No limitations. Humanity would join as an equal partner. But Jacob knew this was only the beginning. The vote revealed the division in galactic politics. Some species saw humanity as saviors, others saw them as future threats. The coming years would determine which view prevailed. After the assembly, Jacob stood with Kate on the observation deck of the repaired Titan. 4 new battleships were under construction in orbital dry dock. The United Nations Navy was expanding. Humanity was building a fleet that could protect not just Earth but their new allies as well. Do you think they'll ever trust us? Kate asked. Jacob watched the construction crews working on the new ships. Some will. Some won't. Trust has to be earned and it takes time. But that's okay. We're not doing this for their approval. We're doing it because it's right. What happens now? Jacob smiled slightly. Now we teach them what we know. We help them build proper defenses. And we make sure that when the next threat emerges, the galaxy is ready. We show them that being dangerous and being good are not mutually exclusive. We prove that humanity deserves its place among the stars. He looked at Earth floating below them. Humanity had spent so long wanting to be accepted by the galactic community. Now they were part of it. But acceptance came to you